Hello, fabulous entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 336, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/336. In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be sharing with you the most common gap in our client attraction process. And I've used the word "our" for a very specific reason. So if you are struggling to turn people who know you into paying clients, then this is going to help you identify potentially the most common gap that we have in our client attraction process, which I lovingly refer to as cap gaps. So let's dive on in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. First and foremost, what is a client attraction process or a CAP? So the client attraction process is a 5-step way that we take people from hearing about us to buying from us. Now, you may have heard some very simplified marketing strategies out there that just say, just get in front of people and then make your offers. But actually, I find there's a lot more nuance to a repeatable, scalable marketing strategy. And so that is why I created this diagram or this flow of the client attraction process so we can break it down a little more and identify where the actual gap is in that process. So the 5 stages of the client attraction process are reach. So that is getting in front of as many eyes as possible, especially those in your niche. Reach. The second stage is nurture. So that is where we are creating a relationship with the people we are reaching. The third step is lead generation. And this is where certain members of your audience lean in and go, ooh, that's something I might be interested in. And then the fourth stage is conversion. So this is where the point of sale actually happens. So they say, yes, I want it. Here's my money. And you take their money. The final stage of the client attraction process is delivery. And I count delivery in client attraction because when you deliver really well for your existing clients, it means that you get more word of mouth referrals, you get far more audience growth, but also you get better at creating clear messaging about the value proposition of working with you because you've got clients who have tangible outcomes, so you can speak to that. And energetically, it also really builds your confidence in being able to go out and market because you know you're going to deliver on your promises. So that's the 5 stages of the client attraction process. And the most common gap in our client attraction process is actually lead generation. And the reason why I say our is because it's us, it's me. I definitely have the biggest gaps in my client attraction process in lead generation, and it's something I'm very conscious of, and I make sure that I look for gaps in that lead generation part in particular. And it was definitely something I avoided a lot in the early stages of my business because no one was telling me about this whole lead generation thing. And also, when I say us, I mean people like us. So women, non-binary folk, people who come from marginalized communities are the ones who are most likely to have that lead generation gap in their client attraction process. Why? Because this is where we get a bit salesy, and that is the most confronting part of the client attraction process. It's also, for most people, the most uncomfortable part. And so it's the one that we, even though we're not really conscious that we're doing it, we can tend to avoid. Now, why would we be avoiding lead generation, and why can we get so distracted by the other stages of the client attraction process? Well, reach is very sexy, and reach numbers are often the numbers that are bandied about by people who want to teach you how to get more reach on social media. So, if you follow anyone on Instagram, they say how to get more reach with your reels. Organic reach is dead, all those conversations. If you follow people on Facebook, they're saying there's no reach in Facebook groups anymore. Facebook pages get no reach. You have to create a profile. Not true, by the way, but that is something that's very fixated on by marketers. Why? Because it's very easy for marketers to sell, right? my business would be far easier and I would make far more money if all I promised was to help you get reach on Facebook. I can help you get reach on Facebook, absolutely. But will that actually result in sales in your business and you making money? No, it needs to be part of a client attraction process. And it's easy for me to create a little course on how to get more reach on Facebook and to grab all of these testimonials from people saying, look, this reached 2,000 people. I've only got 500 followers. Oh my gosh, I've got another 1,000 followers. But will those clients actually have more financial success than the ones that I'm teaching the entire client attraction process to? No. So reach feels very sexy. It's very nice for our egos. It's very easy to get distracted by. That's the focus of most marketing gurus, so they get you fixated on reach. And it's also the measure that is most in your face as well. So when you are working on your business, you're measuring like, how much reach am I getting on social media? How many followers have I got? How many people are on my mailing list? So you're measuring your audience. It's very easy to measure these days. It's a very readily accessible number. So it's one that we can get overly focused on. Then when it comes to the nurture stage of the client attraction process, we also get very caught up in that because that's the lovey-dovey part of the client attraction process. We churn out free content. We help people. We want to be of service. We're generous. We're giving. And so in my audience, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are one of these people. Nurture comes very naturally. It's something that we absolutely want to do until we do it too much. And then we start asking questions like, am I giving away too much for free because people don't value and they don't want to work with me? But actually, that's not a nurture problem. That's not a nurture problem. It's a lead generation problem. You're not giving away too much free content. You have an imbalance and a gap in your client attraction process. Because if someone discovers you on social media because you've used all these sexy reach strategies, and then they start to build a relationship with you because you're nurturing them, you're giving them free content, they're loving it, they're part of your group, they're following you on social media, they're on your mailing list, they're loving you, right? And you're nurturing that relationship. And then you just expect them to buy something, you might get crickets. Because there's a big leap between, oh, I'm grabbing your free stuff and I want to buy this program because I think it's going to get me the outcome that I'm looking for. Or I'm ready to invest in working with you because you're going to help me solve my problem. And the gap is lead generation, right? Conversion is where the sale happens. But where people get stuck is they do lots of reach and lots of nurture, and they do no lead generation. So lead generation is where we get people to lean in and self-identify that your paid product or service could be a good fit for them, could be something that they are interested in. So the earlier you are in business, the more one-to-one your lead generation needs to be. As you get really good at one-to-one lead gen, then you can start scaling it up to larger and larger scales of audiences, larger and larger groups of people at once. But when you first start out and in the early stage of business, one-to-one lead generation is going to be far more effective than one-to-many lead generation for you. And even now for myself, with very leveraged programs and a very healthy income in my business, the majority of people who end up buying from me come through a one-to-one lead generation. Still to this day. Does that mean I'm wasting time in my business and I should be finding ways to scale up? No, I'm growing my sales at scale and my lead generation at scale. But at the same time, I know that if I put in an hour a week into lead generation, then that is going to result in sales that week. And so why wouldn't I still do that? So when it comes to your CAP gap, your client attraction process gap, I want you to be honest with yourself. Do you spend 20% of your time on reach, 20% of your time on nurture, 20% of your time on lead generation, and 20% of your time on conversion, and then 20% of your time on delivery? Or are you spending 80% of your time on reach and 20% of your time on delivery? Yeah, or 50% of your time on reach and 50% of your time on delivery. Is there balance in the time and energy that you're investing into your client attraction process at each stage? Or are you overly focused on reach and nurture and then doing nothing else? If that's the case, what we want to do is bring some balance so that you can fill your CAP gap, your client attraction process gap. Yes? So when it comes to the conversion stage of your client attraction process, the highest conversion strategy is still to this day sales conversations. Whether that's a written sales conversation or a spoken sales conversation, it is the highest conversion way that you can create that conversion. So if you're doing lead generation strategies that bring people in one-to-one, then that is likely going to create or facilitate a one-to-one sales conversation, which is far more likely to convert than a one-to-many conversion event, like sending them over to a sales page without having a conversation with them. So this is really helpful to you if you focus on lead generation in your client attraction process and it's a big gap for you. This is where, without changing anything else in your business, you can see huge, significant improvements in your income in your business. So it's a really sexy part of the client attraction process, even though so many people are distracted by it and they never actually have structured strategy around their lead generation. So here are my top 4 tips for filling a lead generation CAP gap. Number 1, look for that time balance. Even just putting time aside and saying, this is lead generation time, will then get you experimenting with lead generation strategies and asking the right questions. Because if you sit down, I'm working on marketing, you'll default to reach or nurture. Or you'll default to writing offers, a way of getting conversion, or writing sales pages. You'll ignore lead generation. So simply by having dedicated time once a week, this is lead generation time, will start you thinking about, well, what do I do for lead generation? Then you'll start finding content that helps you with lead generation. You'll start looking for strategies for lead generation the same way and with the same ferocity that you go and find and hunt down those ways to get more reach on social media. You'll start hunting down those strategies to do better at your lead generation. So number 1 is just allocate time to it. Number 2 is create as many one-to-one conversations as possible, whether that be encouraging people to send you DMs, telling them to reply to your emails, commenting and creating conversations with people in the comments, whether that be doing posts that encourage people to reach out and have a conversation with you, doing posts that ask people, are you looking to achieve X this year? If so, I might be able to help. Let me know, right? So even just the conscious effort of communicating to people what to do, or communicating with people and telling them that you're interested in having a one-to-one conversation is really powerful in generating far more leads for your business. Number 3 is to use single sessions or special offers or ways to get people off the fence to have a conversation with you one-to-one. The way that we do that in the takeoff program is through experimenting with different introductory offers or ways that people can start working with you, as well as client avatar interviews and market research. All of these are lower investment ways for people to buy from you or connect with you or have a conversation with you while still maintaining a one-to-one relationship. This is why I generally don't recommend, especially in the early stages of business, going out there and offering a super low-cost course, because you might get 150 people buy a course for $50, but how many of them actually do it? And if they don't finish it, then they're not going to be interested in buying another thing from you. And also, how many people do you actually form strong relationships with? You need to put in a considered effort in a group program like that to make sure you're developing strong relationships with people. And then if you've sold them something low cost, you still have to deliver on your promise in that thing. So then they're doing that course with you. And sometimes that's actually a distraction from them buying the big thing that you want them to buy, which is generally your VIP package or a larger ticket product or service. So in the takeoff program, we use a range of different strategies that people play with and try out, and they're all mapped out, to work out what is the right lead generation strategy for them and what works, what messaging works, what converts really well, what ends up attracting those high quality leads. So play with different strategies such as offering single sessions. This is what I did when I started my business. I knew I just wanted to work with 5 people every week, and I didn't care how much they paid me or how little they paid me. I just wanted 5 paying clients a week. So every Wednesday, I would work out, okay, how many clients have I worked with this week? Oh, it's only 2. So then I would offer 3 single 2-hour sessions working with me, but it had to be used that week for a ridiculously discounted price. And I started at $47 to do 2 hours VIP one-to-one with me. And then they sold out. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got my 5 clients this week. And then next week I had a few and I did it again and they sold out. I was like, wow. So every week I was getting 5 leads into my business. But not only that, they were very high quality leads because they were all paying clients, regardless of how little they paid me. And so I understand there's a lot of talk out there about like, don't discount because you're devaluing yourself, da, 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 da. That's fine if you don't need leads and you don't have a lead generation problem. But if you have a challenge with lead generation and you're not able to charge full price and generate leads at that price, for me, it was far more important to me that I had 5 paying clients a week than it was that I stuck to some rudimentary price that I'd just made up out of my head anyway. At that point in time, I wanted $97 an hour, so it would have been $200 if I was charging full price for that session. But I made that price up. There was no one watching me, or there was no hard and fast rule that was the price. And also, some people would reach out to me and say, look, I'm really interested in working with you, but I can't do it this week. And so I would say, well, that's totally fine. Here's how you can book in to work with me normally. This is just discounted because it has to be taken this week. So sometimes just promoting a discounted single session would actually get me leads for full priced work with me. So playing around with those different strategies, working out what works for you, what works for your audience, what you like, what you don't like, is really powerful. But you need that dedicated time for lead generation to experiment with it, and you need a willingness to experiment and see what works for you. There are so many different ways that you can generate leads, but that not all of them are going to be right for your audience. Not all of them are going to work for you. So take some time to experiment with them. And then tip number 4, for really epic lead generation and filling that lead generation cap gap, is systemize your follow-ups, because there are a lot of you out there who actually have a bunch of leads, but you aren't following up with them. You had someone say, oh, it's on my wish list to work with you, and you never engaged in a conversation with that person. You never followed up with them. You've even had, I'm sure, people who've done sales conversations with you and said, oh my gosh, this sounds really amazing. It's just not in my budget right now. And you have not followed up with them. Or you don't have a system of ensuring you follow up with them. You haven't agreed with them that you'll follow up in a couple of months. You have left leads there and discounted them as not leads. So make sure that you have a system of following up. It's another thing that we definitely do inside the Takeoff program. We have follow-up Fridays. It's highly recommended, and a very simple system. You don't need to buy any fancy tools. You can have a follow-up system that's in a spreadsheet. You can have a follow-up system that is in a Word document. It doesn't even need to be in a fancy anything, but what's important is that the follow-up happens when you agreed that it was going to happen. Because for a lot of people, they let a lot of leads go because they devalue the lead, they don't have the system in place, they make assumptions about whether they're allowed to follow up with the person or not, or they don't create a joint agreement on when the next conversation is going to happen. So they are my 4 tips to get started in filling that cap gap if it is lead generation. And if you are looking for help, more structured help like this, and you can really see that your client attraction process needs to have much more structure and strategy behind it, that's exactly what I teach inside the Takeoff program. And I would love for you to come and join us in Takeoff. If you want to find out more, I'll put the link to the Takeoff program inside the show notes of today's episode. But ultimately, what Takeoff does is walks you through, with my mentoring and support and hand-holding, how to build a client attraction process that is streamlined, scalable, and actually works and makes sales by ensuring it's built on very solid foundations of a specific and tangible niche, messaging that resonates and expresses your value proposition really effectively, an offer that is effectively priced and something that people are hungry to buy, and then at the very top of that process, building a scalable, simple and streamlined client attraction process that brings in leads consistently at scale. So if that is what it is that you want to be building this year, then make sure you come and check out the Takeoff program. The link is in the show notes of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.